Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here, as you guys can see on the screen. Today, it is time to rank the LCS AD carries. What you're looking at right now on the screen is my preseason rankings. This was pretty much right after free agency of how I thought all the AD carries were going to kind of shake out as the season unfolded. But now that we've seen 18 regular season games from all these AD carries, or from most of them, I am now going to be rating them after the season. I'm going to be going through each guy and updating their ranking based on what I think of everybody now. The quick disclaimer is that, one, this is just opinions. I'm going to have an opinion. Every single person watching this video is going to have an opinion, and we're surely going to disagree on a lot, if not most of these placements, probably. I definitely want to get your guys' thoughts and opinions. Definitely leave a comment down below with what your rankings look like and what you change with my rankings and everything. And that's great, but, you know, keep it respectful, keep it civil, have an actual discussion rather than just randomly flaming people. And also, I do believe AD carry is one of the toughest positions to rank in League of Legends. I think top and mid are pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory, but like jungle, AD carry, very, very team-reliant positions. AD carries, you know, there's laning, there's high DPM AD carries, there's guys who play more for KDA to stay alive and be there at the end, and also just it's a scaling position where if you play on a worse team, it's going to be difficult to even make it to the late game, to finish a couple items, and to try and win a team fight or something. So it is tough to rank these guys, and everyone likes something different in their AD carries, and I don't know, just kind of, you know, throwing out some excuses for my rankings before we get into it. But you know, I've watched most of the games throughout the entire LCS. Obviously, I'm a huge fan, and these are going to be my thoughts and opinions on every single player. Before we get into that, make sure you drop a like if you haven't already. I'd appreciate it a ton. Try and run up those likes. We try to get 100 likes on every video. Also, subscribe to stay up to date on my latest content. We're inching towards 6,500 subscribers. It'd be awesome to hit that, you know, sometime relatively soon, maybe by the end of March. That'd be dope. With that being said, here we go. Getting right into this. The LCS AD carries post-regular season, pre-playoffs edition. This is my thoughts and opinions. So first up, coming into the season, I had Neo, formerly as Asta, ranked as the worst AD carry coming into the season. And honestly, of all the guys on any of these lists, this is one of the guys that I had the most incorrect coming into the season. I use this F tier as like, I probably don't think they're LCS caliber. Maybe they'd benefit from some more academy time. Maybe I just don't think they'll cut it in the LCS. And that's what I thought of Neo and Definitely coming into the season. They're guys that we've both seen in the LCS previously, and I hadn't been too impressed, so I really didn't see much reason to kind of, you know, think things would be different. And really, I don't even think that's like bad analysis or anything. I just think that until they prove you otherwise, if all you've seen of them is not really being LCS caliber, what would be different this time? You hope they're going to improve, but you can't just place them, you know, from some hypothetical improvement before you've actually seen it. So, you know, just cutting myself some slack there. But Neo has been pretty good for Dignitas. Dignitas has been a hard team to evaluate, a hard team to rank because their record's been good. They've knocked off some top teams. They went 2-0 against TSM. But like, if you watch their games are ugly. Their games are scrappy. They win games that they have no business winning. They get themselves in really weird deficits. They put themselves in really weird situations, but their team fighting is pretty nasty. And yes, Neo does have the benefit of getting to lane with Aphromoo, which in some years that would maybe not be a super good thing, but Aphromoo has been pretty damn good this year, and it's definitely helped out Neo. Obviously, even just having a veteran player to play with and learn from and everything. I know Neo came out recently and said he believes he's the best AD carry in the LCS. I would not go that far, but again, coming into the season, I have him ranked as the worst, and he has absolutely not been the worst. I'm definitely moving him on up. Him and Dignitas have definitely surprised me. I think he's been one of the better performing members on the team, and I think he's quietly, you know, kind of gone under the radar. I've seen some people maybe having him as like the first team all LCS AD carry. I definitely don't think he's been that. He's definitely had some flaws. His KDA isn't like insanely high. His damage per minute isn't like insanely high. His KP isn't insanely high. You know, he does pass the eye test. He is definitely a talented team fighter, but he's not a beast in lane necessarily. He's not a huge hyper carry or anything necessarily. He's just a damn solid AD carry. So I'm going to be moving him into the low A tier. I mean, to me, he's kind of like A-, B+, but I'm leaning more towards the A-. But still, jumping up from the F to the A tier, that's probably going to be the biggest jump we see in any of these tier lists. So that's pretty crazy. I was definitely wrong about this guy. No problem admitting that. Next up, we have Definitely. This is another guy who I was wrong about, but some things going on with him. He is another guy who's getting to play with a pretty good support. I think that definitely helps out. I do really like Ignar. I'm a decent fan of him. I think he's very, very talented. And also, Evil Genius is a pretty good team, and they've been, you know, solid this year. They snuck into the playoffs, being the 6th seed. They've been very, very up and down. Some weeks they look like they could beat anybody, and some weeks they look like they could lose to anybody. I think Definitely has been solid over the course of the season. Absolutely LCS caliber. I definitely do not not think anymore that he is an F tier AD carry. He has proved to us that he belongs. But again, with all these guys, one split doesn't cement anything. One split doesn't mean too much of anything. You need to do it split after split after split, year after year, week after week. You got to be consistent. You also got to show up in the playoffs, which I think will be interesting for both Neo and Definitely to see how they do. Also, once we actually get back in the studio, seeing how all these guys, do on stage, because obviously playing at home in your facility or at your apartment or whatever can be a whole different beast to actually getting up on the stage, playing in front of a crowd, playing in front of just all the people, and that can be intimidating, and playoffs can be stressful and a lot of pressure as well. But Definitely has been really, really solid throughout the year. Again, him and Evil Genius have been a little bit up and down, but I think he's proved to a lot of people that he does belong. To me, he is a solid B tier AD carry. Another guy who, he's not insane, he hasn't been absolutely popping off, but he's been good. He's been good, and to me, that's B tier. That's what I think about him. Next, we're going to go into my man Stixxay. He was coming over from CLG to Golden Guardians. I think playing with CLG, I think he kind of got a bad rap. Yes, I didn't think Stixxay was like super, super talented anymore. Obviously, I think his best days are behind him, but I do think he's still solid. I don't think he deserved as much of the flame as he was maybe getting, but I did understand that coming over to Golden Guardians was going to be tough for him. He was going to be on one of the weakest teams in the league, just like we expected Golden Guardians to be. They really proved to be. And again, playing an AD carry on a bad team where you're a very team reliant position, your support affects you a ton, your whole team affects you a ton. You need teammates around you to keep you alive, to be able to do all this damage, to be able to scale up, to complete multiple items, and that's been tough for Stixxay this year. Now, with that being said, I don't think he's been like amazing or anything. I don't think he's been great, but I do want to move him up from the bottom of C tier to like the top of C tier. I think he's been the best performing member on Golden Guardians. I think he is solid. He needs some help, but I don't really think any of the better teams in the LCS are going to become calling anytime soon either. I think he's been solid. I think he's been okay, but definitely nothing too crazy. I mean, it'd be tough to look too amazing on Golden Guardians, I guess, so I got to cut him some slack, but I mean, he definitely still has his issues. Next up, we have Raes. Now, this is a guy who I honestly didn't know much about coming into the season. I know I had heard in the OPL there have been some days in the past where maybe him and FBI have gone head to head. So a lot of people were hyped, like saying, can this guy be the next OPL AD carry to come into the league and dominate like FBI has been able to do some weeks, some splits, some games. And people were really hyped up and excited for him. I have been a little bit disappointed in this man. I mean, to me, honestly, I would have to say I believe he has been the worst AD carry in the LCS. So coming into the year, I had him in the C tier, ranked as probably the 7th best AD carry on my power rankings. I'm now going to be moving him down to 10th. I'm not moving him to F tier. I'm just keeping him in the C tier. I guess, he's definitely LCS level. It's not like it's egregious that he's still playing. It's not like he needs to be benched or anything like that. But, I mean, he's just been a little disappointing, a little unexciting, nothing too crazy. I don't really have any moments in my mind where I've been super, super impressed when I've been watching an Immortals game and just seeing Raes absolutely popping off. I mean, he just hasn't had those standout moments to me. Again, not necessarily egregiously terrible or anything. I'm keeping him out of the F tier, but he's C tier to me. He's C tier. I think he's last. He's number 10 in my opinion, and that's where he's gonna be staying. Next up, we have Lost. Coming into the season, we knew that this guy was one of the best AD carries in Academy last year, and we know that TSM has had a pretty good history of actually developing AD carries. You see two of the other guys on this list coming from TSM Academy in Johnson and Tactical. And there was some questions about, is Lost going to be as good as advertised? Does he deserve the starting spot for TSM? Should they have gone with Double Lift? Should they start Cody Sun? What exactly is going to be going on? How good is this guy? Was he carried by Treats in Academy? There were so many different questions. And when we saw him right away initially in lock-in, TSM looked bad, and honestly, a lot of it was Lost's fault. He was not the only one playing bad. Huni was playing bad. Sword Art wasn't necessarily playing good either. Power of Evil wasn't playing as good as he is right now. But Lost was pretty visually playing pretty bad, and there was definitely some people calling for Cody Sun to start playing. I believe Cody Sun even got a pentakill in Academy during one of the first few weeks, and it seemed like the stage was set for Lost to be getting benched and him to be out of the league, and for Cody Sun to be coming in. But obviously, obviously, TSM stuck with him. Again, this is another guy who has the great benefit of laning with an awesome support in Sword Art. Has a really great veteran team around him. Obviously, has a really solid coaching staff and leadership around him, just even with Bjergsen, and a lot of what TSM has been able to do. He plays for an awesome organization that, they just find ways to win year in and year out, even when they have, rebuilding or if they have entirely new rosters or whatever. TSM, they find a way, and they believed in Lost and they trusted him, and so far they have reaped major rewards from that. Seeing how far Lost has come from the lock-in tournament to even the beginning of the regular season, when people were flaming him so hard and so much on Twitter, on Reddit, everywhere, on the broadcast, saying that he needs to be benched. He has rebounded amazingly, and he has honestly been one of the better AD carries in the LCS since the beginning of the season. I'm a guy who's definitely very critical of Lost during the early beginning of the season, during the lock-in tournament, and I was worried about his future and whether he was going to be able to hang in the LCS. But since then, he has rebounded spectacularly, and I am moving him from a B tier AD carry up to an A tier. Some people are calling him S tier. Some people are calling him the best AD carry in the league right now. I am not there yet. I'm not in that boat, but I do think he is solidly an A tier AD carry, even top of the A tier. One of the better A tier AD carries. Next up, we have WildTurtle. This is a guy who a lot of people said I had him overrated coming into the preseason. I thought that he was coming off a split where he played in back-to-back LCS finals with FlyQuest. He went to Worlds and didn't look too terrible. Obviously, he was one of the weaker members of FlyQuest, and maybe he was the one holding him back in the end, but I had high hopes for him. I knew it was going to be tough for him to move over to CLG, which is obviously going to be a much worse team than FlyQuest. Smoothie, probably a much worse support than Ignar, but I had faith in him. He's a veteran. He's been around the block. He's done everything. He's always been solid. I thought CLG might have a solid team, might come together well, but unfortunately, that is not what has happened. I guess a lot of the people that were saying I had him overrated and were putting him B tier, maybe even C tier, I guess so far they were right. Maybe he'll bounce back in the summer split. Maybe CLG will bounce back in the summer split, but so far, WildTurtle's not been that good. I think he's the leader in pentakills. I think he has 2 pentakills. I could be wrong there. He's actually been decent in lane. He does consistently come out 10-15 minutes with gold leads. He comes out ahead, but he's not really turning that into anything. He has one of the lower damage shares of any AD carry. He has one of the lower damage per minute. He has low kill participation. I mean, he's getting leads in lane and then just not doing anything. And that's obviously not what you want to see from an AD carry, not what you want to see from a scaling position like that. So, I mean, to me, I had confidence in him. I had faith, but that faith has not been rewarded. And I'm definitely going to be moving WildTurtle down to the top of the C tier. I think he's still a talented guy. And every once in a while, we get those flashes of brilliance from him. We do see some big plays and stuff, but he's just been too inconsistent for me. It's a C tier for now. Next up, we have Johnson, who this is a guy I'm a big fan of. I thought he was really good. He hasn't really gotten a chance to play on many good teams so far yet in the LCS. Obviously, he was on Dignitas last year, and now moving over to FlyQuest, who people thought were gonna be really good, and it turns out they've just not been that good. They were just way overrated. When you put a bunch of young, inexperienced players together, anything could happen, and sometimes it's just not gonna work out. Every young, inexperienced player is kind of like a coin flip, kind of like a lottery ticket. And sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. One of the big misses was Diamond in the bot lane, and again, he was just not cut out for the LCS just yet. Maybe he'll bounce back, maybe he'll be good, but that definitely had an impact on Johnson. When you're laning with a guy just playing as visually bad as Diamond was, it can definitely affect your stats. So Johnson has been disappointing this season for sure, probably not as good as a lot of people expected or had hoped, but I do think that with Dreams coming in now, he will start to look a little bit better. I blame most of the lack of talent or lack of success and stuff in the bot lane that FlyQuest has had, mostly on Diamond. I think Johnson will start to do a lot better. I think he will start to bounce back and hopefully have a really good summer split. I still think he has a lot of good stats. I think he has a lot of good plays still. Overall, I think he's really good. And I don't think we should, kind of take away from what he was able to do too much this split. Yes, he hasn't been great. He hasn't been that consistent, but to me, I'm just going to move him down to the A tier. I think he's still solid. I think he's still good. I still like him as an AD carry overall. And I think he's still really talented. I think he's going to be just fine. I'm not too concerned with Johnson. Next up, we're talking about Tactical. This was a guy who I had coming in as an S tier AD carry into the season. This guy had a really good year last year in 2020, replacing Doublelift. People were obviously rightfully so skeptical of a guy coming in and replacing the best LCS AD carry of all time. It was going to be big shoes to fill. It was going to be tough, but Tactical did a good job. He did a good job throughout the regular season, did good jobs in the playoffs, and had a pretty good performance at Worlds as well. So I saw no reason that he wouldn't be able to come into 2021 just as good, if not better, as he continues to develop, get more synergy with Core JJ, and also come into a year where he is the guy, and they have full confidence in him the whole season. In the offseason, him knowing he's going to be the starting AD carry, and just going from there. But things started out good. Obviously, they won the lock-in tournament. Tactical looked fine. TL was getting a lot of 2v2 kills, actually. Tactical was picking up a ton of kills. But since then, we've heard about a lot of the stuff going on, maybe some mental struggles for Tactical. We're talking about burnout, a lot of that stuff going on. It sounds like he had a crazy offseason where he was grinding a ton, and then he didn't take the breaks when he needed to, and he's just been struggling a little bit mentally, and that stuff can suck, and it can be hard to overcome, and it has without a doubt affected his and Team Liquid's play overall, where he's been really inconsistent. He's been really up and down. He's been really inty, and when you are the guy who's supposed to be carrying games late game, you're in such a pivotal, important position, you can't be having a lot of the just mental errors and lack of focus plays that Tactical's been having, and it has without a doubt costed Team Liquid multiple games over the course of the season. This guy is definitely still really, really talented. He plays on an extremely talented team, and the expectations are very, very high, and he simply needs to be better than he has been. Now, we'll see if maybe he's figured some things out, if he's ready to focus and go hard, into the playoffs and maybe into MSI and stuff like that. But so far, from what we've seen of him in the regular season, was really up and down. It was really inconsistent. He's been a big question mark. One of their a really solid, reliable, dependent, consistent player last year. It's just not been that this year, and to me, that's definitely not an S tier. I'm actually moving him all the way down to the top of the B tier. This is a guy who I have full confidence that he's going to bounce back. At some point he's going to get these mental things figured out. We hope. I mean, we've seen guys not be able to come back from stuff like this before. This is obviously a very, very serious thing, and you're concerned about a guy burning out a couple weeks into the regular season. That's not good, especially a team like Team Liquid that wants to go to MSI and go deep into the tournament and then come right back in the summer and have a good summer performance and then go to Worlds and go deep into Worlds. Like, there's so many games that they need to play in high stress, high pressure situations that, if you're feeling those effects a couple weeks into the regular season where pressure's low and you haven't even really started your journey yet, I mean, that sucks, and I definitely feel bad for him and I feel for him, but that's concerning. It definitely is, and hopefully you can find some things, that start making him feel better and start turning some things around. But I'm definitely concerned for him and Team Liquid in that regard. But I'm going to be putting him in the B tier. But again, I hope he can bounce back. I know he's talented enough to bounce back. He's definitely better. He is more talented than a B tier AD carry. But to me, that's how he's been playing. Next up, we have Sven, who I am a big fan of. I've liked him. Obviously, he comes from TSM. I liked him even back in like the G2 days and everything. I've thought very, very highly of him. I thought he looked really, really good in the lock-in tournament in 2020. He was really, really good with Cloud9 when they were good as well. Maybe he kind of teetered off a little bit into the summer split when Cloud9 started to kind of fall off. And that's kind of been the story of this season as well. Cloud9 started out really good. They made it to the lock-in finals. They had a really hot start to the season. But then things have started to teeter off a little bit, and Sven has as well. He's still been good. I'm not saying he's been bad or anything like that. He has been still very, very solid. But I don't think he's necessarily in that conversation that's like the best AD carry in the LCS right now. I think he's been good, but he's been a little bit inconsistent. I think Cloud9 expects more from him, and they need better from him, because when he's on and at his best, like he was during the spring split last year, while he was early on in the split this year, Cloud9 can be one of the best teams in the LCS and has proved that consistently. They won the title last spring. They were claiming to be one of the best teams in LCS history, yada, 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 and then they just kind of flubbed and faltered out, and Cloud9 just has super high highs and super low lows. Like, they're just so up and down, so inconsistent, and that's been the story for Sven this year. But man, when this guy is good, he is so good. He is able to do insane amounts of damage while still staying so safe. He has some of the best positioning to me in the LCS. He's obviously a veteran. People are going to meme about him like inting at the TSM against TL spring finals and stuff like that, and maybe there's questions of him not being clutch, obviously, as he choked in the playoffs last year. They didn't make it to Worlds, and there is some inconsistency issues there with a lot of these guys, but man, Sven is so talented. I think he is so good. But to me, he hasn't quite been an S tier. I haven't been super impressed with him. To me, I'm going to be putting him at the top of the A tier. I think he's better than how he's been playing lately. I think he can rebound and be better, and hopefully he has a good playoffs, because when Sven's playing good, he's so fun to watch. I know during the lock-in tournament, he had like the back-to-back pentakill games on Misfortune. Like, I mean, he can be really nasty, and he gets to play with a really good support in Vulcan. He has a great team around him, and he's still been good. I'm saying A tier. I'm saying the second best AD carry in the LCS. I'm not, it sounds like I'm just kind of dogging on him, but I think he's been good. I just think Sven is better than maybe how he's been playing recently. I just wish he was a little bit more consistent. Next up, we get into FBI, and I had him coming into the season as the best AD carry in the LCS, and if I recall at the time, it was a little bit controversial, and I'm keeping him there. To me, he is still the best AD carry in the LCS, and that's still probably going to be pretty controversial, because I've seen some people having him as their first AD carry, all LCS first team, and I've seen some people not having him there. So we'll see how that goes. But this guy, he is asked to do so much work for 100 Thieves. He has, I believe, the highest damage per minute in the LCS. I know he has the highest damage share in the LCS. He has the highest gold differential at 15. So, like, he has the insane laning stats. He has the insane kind of scaling damage per minute stats. But also, he is asked to do just a huge amount for this team. I mean, again, we've seen, the stats for Demonte where he has, like, he generates, like, no gold. He does, like, no damage. Yeah, he plays for the team and gets a lot of assists. But, somebody has to make up for that lack of damage and lack of just kind of overall gold and carrying and everything that's going on in the mid lane. Even now that Ryoma's coming in, 100 Thieves still looks a lot the same. But a lot of that falls on FBI's shoulders, and a lot of players wouldn't be able to succeed in that situation. It's an awkward and difficult situation to be in, but I think FBI has been pretty damn good overall in lane and out. Yes, has he had moments? Has he been a little bit up and down? Has he been a little bit shaky? Yes, but again, I just think that's part of how 100 Thieves plays, where they are living on the edge and they're living and dying by these big carry performances by FBI. That's how Golden Guardians was last year, and sometimes it makes FBI look insane, and sometimes it makes him look bad when all the pressure's put on him to carry that game and he makes a little, positioning error, positioning mistake, something like that, and it looks like, it's all his fault that they lost the game. But really, I mean, I think it's a lot of the times his fault that they're even in that position to potentially win those games from a big team fight or something like him. I do think he is the best AD carry in the LCS. I think he has been. I think he's proved it again. And, some people are saying Lost. Some people are saying Sven. I've heard people say Neo. But for me, it is FBI. And really, he, in my opinion, has been the only S tier AD carry in the LCS so far this season. Yeah, I know that's going to be controversial, but that's just really what I feel. That's what I think from watching the games. We'll see how that plays out in the playoffs and everything. Also, I think that what FBI does while not being on one of the top 3 teams is really impressive. Like, put FBI on Cloud9. Put FBI on Team Liquid with Core JJ. Put FBI on TSM. I think he would be insanely better. The fact that he's able to do what he does on the 4th best team in the LCS, I think that makes it even more impressive. And I would love for him to get the opportunity to play on one of these better teams in the LCS in the future and really see what he's able to do. And I think it would be quite impressive. I think he is the best AD carry in the LCS, and that's what I had coming in the season. I'm not changing my opinion now based off what we've seen so far this year. But there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This was my updated LCS AD carry tier list. Again, this is after the regular season, before the playoffs. My thoughts and opinions on all 10 AD carries that we've seen in the LCS so far this season. Definitely drop a like if you enjoyed it. I would appreciate it so much. Really helps me out the YouTube algorithm. Leave a comment down below. What does your tier list look like? What do you think I got right? What do you think I got wrong? I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next one. Remember, keep the discussion civil in the comments. I would appreciate it. Until next time, peace!